Well, good evening. I'm Meteorologist Dan Koch, and I wanted to give a little bit of a winter weather update on what we're expecting on Wednesday and Thursday here across the state of Arkansas. So I want to start out here with the ice forecast accumulations that we have posted by my office. And you'll notice that we've got some greater accumulations in there, and we've moved the ice accumulations a little bit further to the south. It's pretty apparent from the morning model runs that the computer models, pretty much as a whole, have not been handling the cold air intrusion into the state very well. The cold air has been coming in colder and faster than what the models had predicted. And I'll show you some other maps here in a minute, but let's take a look at a couple of the details that we've got here right now. If you'll look, there's a band of really heavy ice accumulation greater than 3/4 of an inch. Forecast right now south of the Mountain View area up towards Hardy. It doesn't show up on the map, but Batesville's kind of right in there near that bullseye portion of the area. And you know, we're looking at 3/4 of an inch plus ice accumulation in these areas. Now, if that does come to fruition, we're looking at a devastating amount of ice here. We're going to see considerable damage to trees, power lines, potential for power outages lasting an extended period of time if this does indeed accumulate on the power lines, or we do have some large trees come down over some major feeder lines. Now, the one thing that I'm a little concerned about as this has been evolving is that we may end up with some of this ice even creeping a little bit further to the south. Now, that could in fact shift that heavy ice band a little further to the southeast. Now, that's not our official forecast right now, but if you're like in the Searcy up the Jonesboro corridor, right now you don't have that much ice forecast. I mean, you've got a decent amount, but need to be aware of the fact that if things go the wrong way, this could come towards you with a little bit more significant icing. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, I do want to show some updates here on how the computer models are gradually starting to adapt to the colder air coming in faster. Now, this here is our European model, and you can see it's starting to get ice pretty much all the way from the Mena area over to Little Rock up towards the Boot Heel of Missouri. And what I always say with these maps is don't pay attention to the actual amounts that the models are forecasting. Just understand that it is forecasting some higher magnitude ice accumulations, and that's generally in line with what we have in our official forecast. Now, if we look over at the GFS model, we see that heavy band again there up, south of Mountain Home, in the Mountain View area over towards Batesville up into the Missouri Boot Heel. And we see some lighter icing amounts further to the south. And I would not be surprised if some of that does come to fruition with the ice a little bit further to the south. And this is our Canadian model, and the Canadian model is kind of going absolutely crazy up to the north with some very significant ice accumulations. Again, these are probably very unrealistic, but it is giving us an idea that somewhere a heavier band of icing is going to set up, and it could be very devastating to the folks that get that much freezing rain accumulation. Now, again, the Canadian model is showing some more significant icing all the way down into the Little Rock metro area. I think it's probably unrealistic right now to think that we would get as much as this is showing, but I certainly think we could pick up at least a little bit of icing that may cause some travel disruptions and maybe some airport delays. Now, if we look over, this is the NAM model, which is one of our shorter range US models. And I'll go to dial in a little bit higher resolution version here. Again, this is showing a heavier band of accumulation up to the north, and showing basically ice accumulations, pretty much up the I-30 corridor to Little Rock, and then up, including Jonesboro, up through Paragould, even over, up into the Missouri Boot Heel area. So, putting all this together, I think it's safe to assume that we're probably going to see some pretty significant ice accumulations somewhere up there, like I said, around Mountain View, Batesville, Walnut Ridge, Pocahontas, maybe even over to Paragould. If this cold air does come in a little bit more than the models have been catching up to, it that band could shift a little further to the southeast, possibly, you know, even including places like Searcy, Newport, and Jonesboro. So I wouldn't get too alarmed just yet, but understand that things could shift a little bit. Now, for the Little Rock metro area, all the way down towards Texarkana and those areas, I don't think there's going to be a very significant amount of icing, which pretty much is reflected in our official Weather Service forecast. But there could be some light icing, and that's really going to be more of a problem for just travel. You know, I don't know how much ice will accumulate on the roadways because it's been warm, but certainly the bridges and overpasses will freeze up and could be make for some pretty hazardous travel.